Welcome. This is Tom George. I'm the CEO at MSMS, and welcome for joining me this evening. Appreciate your taking time from your busy practices to get caught up on MSMS business and activities. The main focus of this evening's presentation is going to be on restructuring recommendations that originated from an MSMS task force, but that were subsequently approved by the MSMS Board of Directors and will now go to the MSMS House of Delegates for consideration. And I'm going to be joined in a few minutes by Dr. Brian Stork. He was the chairman of the task force. Brian is a board member on the MSMS Board of Trustees, and he's also a urologist who practices in Muskegon. And then we'll also be joined by Dr. Paul Bozic. Dr. Bozic is the chair of the MSMS Board of Directors. He's a pulmonologist and critical care physician from the Royal Oak area. I want to mention, too, that this presentation is being recorded, so we'll have it archived on our website so that others can watch it. And the way we'll take questions is through the chat. So if you have questions that come up during the program, don't hesitate to put them in the chat, and then we'll get to them probably at the end of the program. I thought I would start by giving an update on some current events just for a few minutes before we jump into the task force issue. So if we could go to the next slide. I think it's important to cover a couple of these things that are evolving fairly quickly. One is, that MSMS has been working hard to defend reforms that were put into Michigan's liability system a couple of decades ago. MSMS advocated for these. They include things like caps on non-economic damages, a requirement that if you're sued and you're board certified, the plaintiff's expert has to be board certified in your specialty. And there's a statute of limitations, a 2-year statute for filing a malpractice suit. The reason I'm mentioning this is because these things are under attack. Last year, they were under attack in the legislature. And you may know that MSMS stepped up with some of your help, and we were able to defeat an attempt to undo those reforms in the Michigan legislature. Well, this year, the trial advocates are taking another approach. They're using the appellate court mechanism, and they want some of these questions decided by the Michigan Supreme Court. And so we, MSMS, we received actually a letter in the mail asking us or suggesting that we submit a amicus brief. The letter was from the Michigan Supreme Court, and it was a letter suggesting we submit an amicus brief to the court because they're taking up a question on the 2-year statute of limitations. And in this case, there is a patient's family that filed a suit after the statute had expired, and the court said, no, the statute's expired, but they've gone to the appellate court level, and now it's gone to the Supreme Court, and the plaintiff's bar wants to repeal it. So we are filing an amicus brief to defend it. The court has previously upheld it, but there's been turnover, on the court, and so the court has agreed to hear it again. And so we filed our amicus brief a couple of weeks ago. The court will act on it sometime this term. I'm telling you this just so you know what's happening out there, and you know that even though it's not in the news, MSMS is working on your behalf to defend the liability reforms that we worked hard to put in place a couple decades ago. Next slide, please. Another one of our perennial issues is scope of practice, and you know that the nurse practitioners have been working on a bill that would grant them complete independence with no physician oversight. We've worked hard to oppose that now for a couple years. The bill did pass out of the House Health Policy Committee and is now in the House Rules Committee. The reason I put it up here is because we have good intelligence that the physician assistants, the PAs, are going to be introducing a similar bill any day. And it would allow them to practice totally independently. Currently, just like nurse practitioners, they require physician oversight. And so we will oppose this as well. And we will, ask you to help us in opposing it. So we're expecting to see that any day. Next slide, please. On a positive front, we're working on a bill that I think many of you will be interested in. It's House Bill 5313, and it is a bill to reduce the CME recertification requirement in Michigan. You may know that it is the highest in the country. We are tied with a handful of other states that require 150 hours in a 3-year cycle. That's the highest in the country. And so we've looked at what other states do. The average is 25 a year or 75 in a 3-year cycle. So we have a bill to do that. The bill does more than just that. The bill would also require a review by the boards of medicine and osteopathy of the mandated topics that you have to take to renew your license. Things like the implicit bias training, the ethics course, the opioids, human trafficking, etc. Those would be reviewed by the boards of medicine and osteopathy, and they would have the ability to decide whether those topics are warranted to be included in the future or not. So that's a second provision. And thirdly, it would allow administrative errors to be removed from a physician's record if they completed, say, a deficiency in their CME hours. Right now, that can go on your record permanently. This would allow, if you fix that, for that to be removed or sunset from your record. So this is an important bill that would help many of our members, especially those that work part-time or that are nearing, the end of their career. This recertification just can become an extra burden, and we want to make it, easier for physicians to maintain their license and practice, not a burden. Next slide, please. And then hot off the press, hopefully you saw this in Metagram. Metagram is our newsletter that goes out to our members. You should be getting it. If you don't see it, you don't know what I'm talking about. Log in at the MSMS website and make sure we've got your proper email. Sometimes these are blocked as spam, or sometimes if you've given us your hospital email, the hospitals block our newsletter to you. So it was in Friday's newsletter, Metagram. That is an article about a recent Blue Cross notice. They send out their notice to their participating physicians in their newsletter called The Record. And in The Record, they said that they were changing their modifier 25 policy. And this has to do when physicians provide evaluation services in E&M code on a certain day, and then on the same day, maybe do a procedure. There's certain rules related to billing for that. Well, they want to change that and reduce the reimbursement for when those services are done on the same day. And they've announced that's going to take effect May 1st. Next slide, please. So at MSMS, we quickly put together a letter of objection, which I sent to Blue Cross last week, requesting a meeting with them. And I've gotten some word back that they are working on scheduling that. But we need your input on how this might affect your practice. So if you find the Metagram, there's an article in there, and you can submit, information, and Rebecca just put it in the chat. You can submit information on how this might affect your practice. We're also writing a letter that we're asking our specialty societies to sign, stating how it's going to affect the ability of patients to get into physicians and have procedures done. So it's very important, and this is hot off the press because this notice from Blue Cross just came out a few days ago. So I'm telling you this so you kind of get the sense that, there's always something going on, and that we, your state medical society, we're doing our best to stay on top of these things. Next slide, please. And so that is going to bring us now to the report from our Reorganization Task Force. So I'm going to again introduce Brian Stork, who is the chair of the task force, to take it from here. And as I mentioned, the task force made recommendations, and several of these have been approved by the board of directors and will come to the House of Delegates for consideration. So it's important that you know about them. So thank you, Brian. It's all yours.
Thank you, Tom. Good evening, everybody. I think it was really important that we started out with Dr. George tonight because there is no organization in the state of Michigan that can do for physicians what the Michigan State Medical Society can do. And it's important that we have a vibrant and growing medical society. One of the reasons that a task force was formed on this particular issue is because of growing concern about the health of our medical society. This has been discussed at the House of Delegates year after year now. So last year, based on 3 House of Delegates resolutions, the Board of Directors appointed a Reorganization Task Force to study the following structural areas within the medical society. And this includes the House of Delegates, organizational partnerships such as MSMS's partnership with county, specialty, and physician organizations, as well as leadership, the leadership of the Board of Directors, officers of the Board of Directors, and the Judicial Commission. So there was a process for this, which we followed, which we follow for all resolutions that were referred to the board. At our July board meeting, a task force was formed. Over the course of the fall, 4 months in a row, we met to discuss each of these issues in depth and make recommendations. The task force made 3 recommendations to the Board of Directors. We have 1 more pending. The Board of Directors just simply ran out of time at our last meeting, and we have another meeting scheduled. And then there will be a board action report, and this process, again, will follow the same process for resolutions in the House at this upcoming House of Delegates. So MSMS faces significant structural, financial, and membership challenges that threaten its long-term viability. The Reorganization Task Force was charged with developing recommendations to modernize governance, improve efficiency, and strengthen engagement across the organization. I heard a story this morning about World War I and how when World War I started, a group of soldiers showed up on a horseback wearing knight's armor and chainmail and carrying swords. Many of our bylaws and governance structure were created during a period where people were riding horses, or at least taking horses and buggies to see patients. Modern warfare is drone-driven, driven by satellites, and is constantly evolving. And if we're going to be able to fight for the things that Tom talked about and the other things that we find important, we need modern governance, efficiency, and strength in numbers. So these are the members of the task force that donated their time to create a report and to make recommendations to the Board of Directors. The task force was composed of half MSMS board members and half county medical society members. I think it was a very dedicated group of individuals who really tried to think forward and think what's best for the state medical society and really for all of us. So in addition to being the task force chair, I also have served on the finance committee for the state medical society for the past 7 years, and I was chair for 3 years. And over the course of the past 2 decades, we've experienced a 63% decrease in active members. Not only have we lost as many members, but the rate that we're losing members is accelerating significantly. We've also showed, as we'll show you in a chart here in a second, decreased revenues, both from membership and non-dues revenues. Now, as the Finance Committee and as the board have struggled with what we've seen here, our immediate reaction over the years has been to cut. We've sold our office building in Lansing. We've cut 87% of our staff. We've gone down from 154 employees to 20 employees. It really is shocking the amount of staff that we've had to cut. It puts an enormous amount of pressure on the staff that we have. And in my opinion, as a leader, it really strains the morale of the staff that we continue to have at a time when we need them the most. And so here is graphic representation of what we've seen our membership do over the course of the past almost 20 years, going from almost 11,000 members to now just under 4,000 members. and you'll see how we started with kind of a slow decline, but maybe over the past 5 years or so, we've seen a very steep decline. 15% of our membership last year and 15% of our membership the year before. And as you can imagine, what follows is a decrease in dues revenue from a peak in 1999 of over 4 million to in 2024, 1.7 million. This significantly affects our operation and our ability to advocate for ourselves and for our patients and for our communities. And then finally, there's non-dues revenue. As you may be aware, the Medical Society has a number of subsidiaries ranging from products such as life insurance to credentialing. And these subsidiaries support the work of the Medical Society. And even that revenue has decreased significantly from $11 million in 2008 per year to just over $4 million in 2024. So this year, we were able to balance the budget with a one-time grant. We anticipate in 2026 that we are going to have a steady decline and will very likely, if we don't make major reforms, end up in the red and continue to have deficits moving forward. Without reform, MSMS faces an unsustainable future that could result in severe downsizing. And I don't say this lightly, in that we could, in a few years, end up with just 3 staff members. In fact, if you'll remember a couple of years ago at the House of Delegates meeting, Dr. Waters said that if we didn't do something drastic in the next 5 to 10 years, that we essentially would not have a Michigan State Medical Society. And his prophecy is starting, unfortunately, to become true. The task force concluded that structural change is essential to preserve MSMS's financial integrity, mission, and relevance. So one thing you can do tonight while you're listening to the presentations is think about why you're a member of the Michigan State Medical Society. This was a survey that was done roughly 2 years ago. We sent it to our membership. We got a 10% response rate. And when I look at this study, we see advocacy, we see CME opportunities. But for me personally, I'm an employed physician. What my hospital advocates for is not what's important to me. The hospital has a different agenda. I'm a physician. I have certain public health and safety issues that I'm passionate about. And that is, for me, why I'm part of this society. And I would just encourage you to think about what you're passionate about when it comes to the Michigan State Medical Society. And even though we're talking about restructuring tonight, how can you mentor or encourage other physicians in the state of Michigan to join the Michigan State Medical Society and to make us stronger through increased membership? And so again, our task force met 4 times. We had some pretty significant deliberation. I will say that we handled each of these topics individually, but our recommendation is meant to be a single recommendation. We recommend that all of the topics that we reviewed and suggestions that we approved be taken as a single entity and approved as bylaw changes in the upcoming House of Delegates. So I thank you for your time, and I will turn the chat over to Dr. Bozick.
Thank you, Dr. Stork. Thank you to all of you joining tonight. Very important information to share with you on what the Board of Directors thinks of task force recommendations. But before I do that, just a brief, if you don't know me, I've long been a proud member of my county medical society. And a lot of these things that we're discussing at the board level and making recommendations to the House of Delegates may seem like it has impact on county medical societies as well, and want to be conscious and just transparent about that. And that was discussed in the context of these recommendations. I will start by saying that we're all looking to work together on this. to get to a better future of stability for organized medicine. As Dr. Stork mentioned, the board was able to review three of the four task force recommendations that I will present to you tonight. Next slide, please. First was relating to the House of Delegates. Task Force recommended, and the board agrees that the current structure of the House of Delegates should be replaced with an all MSMS online policy forum. An online policy forum. You can see that the House of Delegates would be replaced by that forum. And this is to expand participation, first and foremost, increase engagement. The House of Delegates, as you may recall from a few slides prior, showed that not many members actually join or maintain their membership based on the House of Delegates. It represents only about 2% of the membership in the House of Delegates. And by expanding it to an all-member policy forum, we have the opportunity to improve the democracy within the decision-making process. It also modernizes governance a little bit through continued year-round process, and I'll speak to that in just a moment. But why wait a whole year if something's important? Why not see if we can address it sooner? And we can do this using digital platforms. There's a cost savings attached to that, which is very important. There's at least $60,000 spent in direct costs for each one-day in-person meeting if we've been having them in the last few years. And there's an enormous amount of indirect staff time that goes into setting up and supporting the House of Delegates. Next slide, please. So one of the things that the task force did was we were charged to see what other states are doing and how other states are modernizing. And we found about 12 states that have moved to this type of all-member online policy system. And they do report a significant amount of success with it, having resolutions that can be collected year-round. I'll show you examples of Wisconsin in just a minute. And then there's this policy review committee, a policy review committee that evaluates resolutions 2 to 3 times per year. And so there's less time between release of decision making by the Policy Review Committee and MSMS. And, members can be invited to provide written and personal testimony to the committee that can be accomplished digitally. People can, as we do in certain forums currently, go back and forth with their thoughts after identifying themselves as a member, which lends to the democratic process. And then the Policy Review Committee recommendations in these states are sent to the Board of Directors. Next slide, please. Let me show you Wisconsin real quick. And this is just an example, some screenshots of what they have. They have this page with this program called Policy Link, and you can visit Policy Link 24/7, 365 to drop a recommendation or a resolution for consideration. Next slide, please. In Wisconsin, they've got very clear cycles, policy cycles, where they talk about when things are posted to Policy Link for vote and comment, and then proposals being closed for comment, and then the review committee meeting, and then when does the board make a decision on proposals that are submitted with full insight of what every member opined upon and recommendations from the Policy Review Committee. Next slide, please. Wisconsin thinks this is successful. A few other quotes from other states. Minnesota, member use and engagement far exceeds prior House of Delegates attendance. Vermont, by and large, the change has been beneficial and we can adopt policies much more quickly now. Arizona sends a strong signal about transparency and member empowerment. So all very favorable feedback. Next slide, please. What would this look like in MSMS? Well, we have leaders in this space already. You've elected a speaker and a vice speaker for the House of Delegates who could become the inaugural chair and vice chair of the policy committee. And then we would look to appoint members, interested members, with recommendations, endorsements to ensure diversity across the policy committee. And this could be geographic representation. This could be specialties. There's always that one resolution from ophthalmology or dermatology that comes up every year that has us scratching our heads. They could sit on such a policy committee. Different sections, making sure that the different sections of the society are represented, could include involvement of physician organizations and individual members that want to participate. So again, the rationale is that this would allow for more immediate decisions, especially with time-sensitive issues, engage more members, and also pretend a cost savings and decreasing direct and indirect costs. Next slide, please. Um, so, as many state medical societies have already experienced, this system allows MSMS members to have that opportunity to introduce and engage with policy initiatives with some efficiencies and some cost savings. Also, it redistributes the work throughout the year for limited staff, as Dr. Stork mentioned, only 11 FTEs dedicated to MSMS at this time. That was recommendation number one. Next slide, please. Under recommendation number two, the task force recommends, and the board has agreed to propose elimination of the mandatory dual membership and chartering of county medical societies. I mentioned that this is a particularly tough one for me. I'll tell you right now that Oakland County Medical Society will be getting my membership, regardless of how this plays out. Rationale behind this. You've seen the financial trajectories, and you've seen the membership trajectories. And we all know that healthcare is becoming increasingly unstable financial footing. And the large group memberships that we've had over time are dissolving. And you've seen that in counties, you've seen that in the state society. And this would significantly lower cost of large group memberships. It would also allow for decisions to be made by these large groups or individuals as to where they best think that their organized medicine dollars are spent, if not in both organizations. There's incredible administrative complexity to managing dues across our dues collecting counties and then making adjustments at the MSMS level, combining them and sending out a requisition. Over 2,300 dues combinations exist because we all have variability. And yes, there's variability at the state too, and at many of the counties, which makes it difficult. And that's an incredible task and very onerous for staff. It does modernize the membership to reflect the realities of modern medical practice. Right? And it aligns with legal counsel's findings that the dual membership model may pose liability risks for MSMS with the county medical society, and more on that in a couple slides. Next slide, please. Let's talk about the dual membership portion of it. Again, the complexity is there and it's high, and because a roster is required, group bills take long time to produce because they can cross county lines. And some group practices question the value of a mandatory membership in one organization or the other. Current billing fees that we charge don't fully adequately cover, and I say we, MSMS charges, does not really adequately cover the software cost, which has to be, I say NASA computer tongue in cheek, but that's kind of what's required to try to sort all of this out and do all the tracking or the staff time to do all those fees. And now many physicians are working as contracted employees and they're practicing in multiple locations or across sometimes even state lines. And mandatory county membership may be impractical for these mobile physicians. And when we've made it mandatory, we've seen sometimes county versus county to try to understand where they fall or where they ought fall. Next slide, please. So time and time again, our membership team tells us at the state level something that you've probably heard at the county level as well, which is it's a very difficult value proposition when you consider that the dues from MSMS, which has been unchanged by will of the House for decades, plus that county medical society dues, maybe up or sometimes even over $400, makes that a $900 tab. And we've tried things like the large group discounts with 40%. That brings it down somewhat. And when you look at that $540 per physician number, that's, our largest group discount that is currently offered at the moment, or would be proposed at the moment for the largest of groups. And many of those large groups have free CME already. Some docs that don't get their free CME said, you know what, the free CME would be worth the price of maybe a state membership on its own, but then combined with a county membership, then the value proposition is lost. And I hate to say that we were undercut in large part by our national partner in the American Medical Association, who offers dues at $420 per individual, but they, being 94% non-dues revenue through ICDs, can give large group discounts of $100 per physician, and they too can give free CME. So the value proposition just by dollar is weak, and the consideration is by separating county and state into individual membership opportunities that both may benefit in different ways. Next slide, please. The bylaws speak to chartering of the MSMS, chartering the component or county medical societies, and it's been like that for into the 1800s in some instances, which has created a misconception that it's one business entity, that the county medical societies are really just divisions in the department of MSMS, if you will, rather than separate entities, separate business structures, separate tax IDs. And when considered as a single entity, that can create misconceptions that lead to bundling of county and state organizations, sometimes with legal ramifications. I shouldn't say recently, we had one claim against a county medical society where MSMS was added on as a secondary to that claim, which was managed, and MSMS was removed, but not without significant cost, legal time, legal fees. Additionally, dual membership can be seen as a representation by MSMS that component societies' dues are being collected, they're being safeguarded, they're being used for proper purposes, all with state's medical society oversight, which does not occur. And a court may view this as a reasonable expectation for members, creditors, others, claiming that the component society's relationship to MSMS was misrepresented to them and they were fraudulently induced to pay dues to a defunct or a failing component society. I read that. I take that as those are strong terms there. But can we go to the next slide, please? We've got a total of 59 component societies throughout the state of Michigan, and 13 of them are active. They're collecting dues. There's membership benefits, some fewer than others quite extensive. And this range in collection of dues could be anywhere from $50 to $415, depending on which active county you're in. However, we have 11 identified component societies that are inactive without any discernible membership benefits, but still charge dues. Some of those counties, we don't know where those dues are. 2 counties have been dissolved for failure to report. 9 have no record with the state of Michigan or the IRS. And then 35 counties are inactive and do not charge dues. And this could be because of a number of things. I mean, with the generalized decrease in membership, as Dr. Stork alluded to and demonstrated for us, overall decreases in membership have led to smaller county organizations as well. So there may be less opportunity to have, some physician leadership that can assist with maintaining the activities of that county or having oversight of the dues that are being charged. Most counties wouldn't qualify for an audit as there's not enough staffing to meet needs for the internal controls to oversee those audits, the segregation of duties, or even approval process of those audits. Next slide, please. It's challenging. This is a very difficult concept because this is the way that the state and county medical societies have operated nearly since inception. Um, though bylaws designed to create this relationship were made in a legacy framework at the inception, right? There's really no considered modern benefit to either the state or the county medical societies from chartering provision. And as mentioned, the legal counsel for MSMS recommends eliminating this chartering requirement. Um, Eliminating this and the chartering and the dual membership requirement would allow both Michigan State Medical Society and all of the county medical societies who are active to continue to partner with each other and operate. And this is the same relationship that we currently have with the specialty medical societies, where everyone works collegially. We work on legislative issues, advocacy, CME program, shared speakers. Next slide, please. But that does create some potential challenges and opportunities, potentially, right? Billing and maintaining a membership list may be a new competency required for a county medical society. What does MSMS participation look like in meetings? Hoping to maintain that. The county medical society may need to review their mission and their purpose and their membership benefits and make sure they're at the right price point to be competitive as a local representative for grassroots organized medicine. And perhaps one potential opportunity for county medical societies is in new members with our osteopathic colleagues, our dentists, our neighboring counties, our travel physicians. MOA has no chartering. They have no mandatory dual memberships. Perhaps they see what the county medical society um, in their locale could bring to them and see that as a benefit. So potential for opportunity and growth with our current county medical societies. Next slide, please. A large topic of conversation was impact uh, of ending a mandatory dual membership and ending the chartering provision, with emphasis and special attention to what that could look like for county medical societies. This actually was a special session of the task force and something that was discussed by the board of directors. And at this time, transition assistance has been discussed. MSMS is willing to bill for 2027 dues at no cost to allow for counties to find time to research billing and marketing options. And more than that, the MSMS Foundation is willing to provide grant opportunities to assist in transitional costs, which could be those billing software or maybe uplift in county-specific marketing. There'll be continued access to the membership reporting portal through 2027. Staff leadership's available as a resource in reviewing budgets that may need to be modified from current state. There's still possibilities of insurance and benefit consultation. And then, we want to stay in close contact between state and county to provide assistance with legislative meetings, things that we want to co-sponsor. Are there member alerts that need to go out? What advocacy needs to be prioritized? MSMS is willing to have continuation of one CME application per year for county medical societies at no cost, and ongoing assistance with internal and external speakers. So that was the second. That was the second of three that we'll be discussing tonight. The third one is a little bit easier to discuss. It's the task force recommendation is to eliminate judicial commission and requirement for county medical societies to maintain a peer review and ethics committee. And this was agreed upon by the board of directors. Next slide, please. Our bylaws are structured in such a way that the county medical societies start by having a standing peer review and ethics committee, and then MSMS has a standing judicial commission. Most, not all, after some education I received from our executive directors from the counties. Most are, but not all, are in non-compliance potentially with this bylaw. Do not have a standing peer review and ethics committee, and the Judicial Commission would typically be activated by peer review and ethics committee at the county medical society level if action was recommended against a particular member. Now, keep in mind that most action items against physicians these days are through the modern Board of Medicine and osteopathy. And statute gave them oversight of physicians and their licensure as of 1978. So, a fair amount of time has passed between then and now, almost 50 years. Um, could you go to the next slide, please? So, again, this is from a time when medical societies examined students, issued medical certificates, many different things that predated our current structure. And the review process was really made to revoke memberships and potentially licenses of physicians who exhibited, quote unquote, unseemly conduct or used secret nostrums, which is a very interesting term from Charles Olson, who published a book called Secret Nostrums and Systems of Medicine in 1891, if that helps date the terminology of the bylaws surrounding this. Next slide, please. A rarely used mechanism that currently mandates that the Judicial Commission be elected by membership, hold hearings, rule on disciplinary matters, including expelling members. It's almost impossible to find, when we were trying to stand up a Judicial Commission, anyone to step forward for these things. And many state medical societies have eliminated their judicial commissions, instead directing complaints to their medical board. And if there is a member's medical or osteopathic license that is suspended, their MSMS membership is automatically suspended as well. So that's number 3 recommendation. Number 4 is about the structure of the board, and that recommendation is pending at this time. So we're hopeful to have a recommendation for the society shortly. So just in conclusion on the recommendations, we have elimination of the House of Delegates and creation of this policy forum, this online policy forum that can run year-round, led by the policy committee. Recommendation number 2 is to eliminate the mandatory dual membership and the chartering requirements between MSMS and the county medical societies. And recommendation number 3 is to eliminate the Judicial Commission and peer review committees. And the 4th recommendation is pending. Next slide, please. I'm a pulmonary critical care guy, so we're always accused of hanging crepe, right? Providing the worst possible scenario, so that if we happen to improve, then everyone's surprised, and if we happen to fail, well, that was what was expected. I'm not hanging crepe. We've seen the trajectories that have extended over, years, if not decades. If these recommendations are not adopted and this trend continues, MSMS will need to take immediate cost-cutting actions. There's the projection that the society, if we continue to lose members at the current trend, could be a 1,000-member society in just 4 to 6 years. It would be fiscally irresponsible to not prepare for that. Further staff reductions would be necessary. You know that Dr. George has had to make very difficult decisions in staff reduction to date. It's hard to think of who else could be left off the staff and maintain the functionality that you saw in Dr. George's opening, all the great things that are happening. So it's very difficult, and you start, instead of thinking about individual staff, then you start thinking about in terms of maybe like service lines, Is there elimination of educational programs? Because currently that's not revenue generating. Elimination of advocacy and policy staff would be tragic given all the good work of the society. The subsidiary businesses would need to be sold and closed over time with, as Dr. Stork mentioned, the potential downsizing to a minimal number of 3 staff left. Next slide, please. MSMS would be using its reserve funds to stay operating to the extent that it could as this glide path continues down to 3 existing staff. As you know, once you start selling off the corpus of the investments, then of course the return on them is sequentially less year over year. And ultimately, the result of this would be a high risk for losing its operational capacity. Certainly, with that would come its decreased advocacy influence, less ability to shape things on the Hill, and of course, long-term sustainability would remain a threat if action is not taken immediately. Next slide, please. The task force posed to the MSMS Board of Directors and to you as members, delegates in particular, to adopt this report in full. That would include the 4th recommendation that the board still needs to bring to you. However, these proposed reforms, the modern governance, the flexible membership, financial stability, enhanced engagement, hopefully represent a realistic forward-looking approach to rebuilding MSMS to where we were in the 90s, right? And make it into a more efficient, inclusive, resilient organization prepared for the next era of organized medicine in Michigan. I went over by about 2 minutes from my intended time, but want to leave ample time for questions to discuss anything that's on the mind of the membership tonight or comments for that matter. And I will say that there have been iterations of this PowerPoint. We've gone through this PowerPoint a few different times now, and we learned things. And we want to give the most factual information. So if you see anything on here that might not look factually correct, or you have questions about, let us know. We'll do a deeper dive. But we believe everything that's on here to be accurate. So with that, I encourage questions, comments, and feedback.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Bozick. And we're joined again by Dr. Stork, who chaired the task force. And to members who may have come on late, thank you for joining us and hearing about these important proposals. This program was recorded and it will be archived on our website so other members will be able to view it. And also, we are planning another live forum on Tuesday, March 3rd at 5:30 p.m. So if you have colleagues that missed this one and they wish to attend another live forum, they'll have that opportunity. And then at that one, by that time, we would have the board's recommendation regarding the 4th proposal from the task force. So we should have a more complete picture. So I think I'll pause now. I'm looking in the chat to see if we have any questions. Oh, here's a couple. I think okay, well, let me read this one. Here's the question. What is the plan for sharing the last proposal number 4 with the MSMS membership?
So the board is going to get to decision on that. We anticipate that that's going to come within the next couple weeks. And then we're going to broadcast it widely and working through all of our not only delegates but the membership at large, likely through the metagram. And we'll lean on staff a little bit to assist to make sure that everyone is at least informed.
And of course, all of these proposals will go to, in going to the House of Delegates, they first go to a reference committee for review. So that's another opportunity. And of course, the reference committee is comprised of delegates of the House of Delegates, but any member can attend a reference committee or submit written testimony or attend. The reference committees are going to be on Zoom this year. They can attend in person and comment, or any member can submit written comments to the reference committee. We have another question here. Delegates voted on resolutions previously and currently. But with these recommendations, the delegate position would not exist, and the votes would be deferred to the policy committee with two members, the current speaker and vice speaker. So I think you can answer that. That is incorrect. The policy committee would be larger than that, but I'll let Dr. Bozick tackle that.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. George. Thanks for that, Dr. Jagtap. It's interesting because some policy review committees from different states, you know, place sometimes a rather small number. They consider it a reference committee, right? And you know that our reference committees tend to be on the smaller side, but they hear lots of things in reference committee. Um, as we discussed it in MSMS, we weren't sure why we want to keep it small. It would seem like you want to have a deep bench, at times, so that many folks could hear all of the opinions from all of the members that had a chance to opine and formulate decision making based on that feedback. So, so there hasn't been a number placed on it. Certainly, the current chair, vice chair could be, I'm sorry, speaker, vice speaker would be seen as chair, vice chair of this new policy committee. But then we would kind of grow to need, I would imagine. So it wouldn't be limited to just those two folks. And anyone could provide feedback on any issue.
Great. Thank you. Here's another one. Was the task force asked to consider other measures to improve membership?
As task force chair, I think I can address that. That wasn't specifically sent to us as an ask from the House of Delegates, but the issue was discussed extensively during our deliberations. And what may have been presented earlier is that medicine has changed, that the ratio of employed physicians now is significantly greater than it was in the past, and that selling group memberships either to large healthcare organizations such as Trinity Health or Corewell is very challenging in this environment, given the dual cost structure that we have, the current linking between the state and the counties. And to add further, we've seen our membership numbers drop, we've seen our staff numbers drop. There was a time shortly before I went into medicine where medical society staff would come to our offices and tell us all the great things that they were doing and use that opportunity to talk about the value of membership. And we don't have that number of staff anymore to be able to provide that service. So in my opinion, we're our own best advocates. And if we can't sell memberships, if I can't come out here and talk to my colleagues about the value of this society and sell memberships, then that's a problem. And I can tell you that multiple times now I've been questioned about, well, what is our own medical society doing? What is Michigan State or Muskegon County Medical Society doing that justifies the cost of membership? And that's maybe a conversation that we can have offline or something like that. But you should be asking your own self, what are your counties doing? Do those counties justify what you're paying for them? If they do, fantastic. And if not, then I think not only do changes need to be made at the state level, but maybe at the county level as well.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Stork. And you have another question about the policy committee. Will the policy committee act as a filter for what issues are brought to the membership for discussion, or will all issues be presented?
So as we look at other states, most of them have the policy committee there that can filter select things. The priority, of course, we would want to be on advocacy, strategy, and any financial implications. Some states say that they're less inclined to pursue shall we say, social justice policies that maybe don't directly apply to medicine. And those are models that we're exploring.
Thank you. And here's another question. Are the changes proposed meant to achieve a significant cost savings? And if so, how much is anticipated? And or to reduce the administrative burden? And which is the primary objective?
I'll start, but Dr. George, I imagine that you have thoughts on this. And I'm going to go back to the question that's Dr. Zakalik put in the chat that was where we asked to consider other measures. Um, if you've been close to the workings of the medical society for years, you've seen different strategies to try to turn this trajectory of decreased membership around, right? Dr. George's predecessor decided to, for instance, go into deficit spending to try to enhance any possible benefit that we could to recruit more members. We went to House of Delegates to ask for special dispensation for creative membership models, which is where that 40% off for the largest of large groups in the state of Michigan comes from, by the way. Many other things. And they didn't work. They didn't work. So, cost savings, I mentioned first of all, we'd like revenue. Yes, we'd like cost savings, but I'll tell you, there's very little left to cut. Very little left to cut unless we give away key membership benefits, as I mentioned on my one slide. So now it's a matter of, stemming the tide, turning the ship around, and trying to generate more revenue. And our membership team has showed us, nearly 100 touch points for membership opportunities that they showed the board that were unsuccessful, And we believe that changes like these will be helpful in engaging some of those groups. And even if we got a small number of those groups, that could translate into positive revenue and more security for organized medicine in the state of Michigan and its advocacy. Administrative burden, I will defer to Dr. George, but as chair of the board, I will tell you administrative burden is high, right? Is high for our staff. And that's an indirect cost, but that's also not particularly fair to a team of incredibly bright and motivated staff members who are working for the betterment of medicine in the state of Michigan. Dr. George.
Yeah, I can add a little bit to that. So that is a very good question. Are these changes meant to achieve cost savings? Yes, there is some cost savings by eliminating the House of Delegates and going to a policy forum. This year, we're going to a virtual House of Delegates. Last year it was in person. By going to a virtual House of Delegates, there are some cost savings. There are further cost savings by going to a policy forum. And that's because there's several reasons, but for the House of Delegates, imagine this is a big production and we don't have dedicated staff to organize it. We used to, when we had 150 employees, there were actually meeting planners. Their whole job was to set up the House of Delegates. That was their whole job, year round. So we don't have that anymore. Now those tasks fall on the other staff who have other duties. So, they're supposed to be doing advocacy, writing letters to Blue Cross, setting up amicus briefs, doing membership things, but suddenly they've got to get organized for the House of Delegates. So it's extra work that is taking their time away from doing the policy work, the advocacy work, or recruiting members that are their primary jobs. So there are efficiency savings there. So there's some modest cost savings. There's efficiency savings with staff time. And a good question that came up when we discussed this before, well, if the policy committee and they're reviewing resolutions, isn't that the same kind of thing? And there's some work with that? Yes, but it's spread out over the year. And the resolutions are handled, quarterly or 3 times a year, whatever. So it's spread out over the year, and it's much less of a burden than setting up a whole House of Delegates. So there are efficiencies there. And then the hope, though, And this is, I think, for me, the big one. I'm the salesperson for MSMS membership. I'm the one that meets with these large systems, with large medical groups, with large practices. And they're the ones that are telling me, we love MSMS. You're doing a great job, but the value proposition isn't there. We're not going to pay $900, a member for 100 physicians. We're just not going to do that. We might pay, a couple $100 a member, $300 a member. Well, the discount I can give, the biggest discount, as you saw on an earlier slide, is 40%. So that just gets us down to, $500 a member. So the problem that I see is the ability to sell these group memberships. If we look at the membership decline, it is largely explained by the loss of these large groups. And when I talk to CEOs in other states that have disconnected the dual membership requirement, when I talk to my colleague CEOs, they say when they did that, their group membership sales improved. It was easier for them to sell a group membership because the value proposition was much better. So there are cost savings, there's efficiencies created, and there's the potential to recruit new members because of a better value proposition. All three of those things are part of this package. So I hope I've answered that question. I'm going to scroll back up here to the next one, and that is, it's from Dr. Zakalik. Do you think the recommended measures will increase membership? Well, I just touched on that. How about taking a radical U-turn and advocate unified negotiations with insurance companies? So I think this gets into, forming a union. And that is an interesting question, that the House of Delegates and the board has debated. And do you have any comments on that, Paul?
So it's an interesting question. And the board was asked to opine about stance on unionization of physicians, which it deferred. It deferred because of reorganization, wanting to understand the structure if the society was to stand behind something like that. So it was we discussed with the author this year, and they gave us permission to put off decision on that this year. But I suspect we will be hearing more about that topic.
Right. I think we've handled or have attempted to handle all the questions in the chat. And it's now 8 o'clock. I appreciate your attention to this important matter. I hope, members, delegates, you'll give it serious thought and consideration. This is a difficult time, but it's also an opportunity, to make a change and to help shape the future of organized medicine. So it's here for the next generation of physicians. So I appreciate your engagement on this. If you think of some other question after the fact, feel free, to email me. Also, I think I speak for the three of us. We're happy to attend your delegate meetings in your counties, should you have them. Should there be discussion among your delegates where I think it's important, that they get this information. So, you can refer them to the video that will be archived on our website, but we could also arrange to appear in person. Paul or Brian, do you have any closing comments?
I just want to say thank you again for everyone attending this important update. If your county's executive committee is meeting as well, happy to address them. Oftentimes they're delegates, sometimes they're not, but they could be influential in having discussion with delegates that may not be as informed of the day-to-day nuances of the medical society. And I do want to take just a moment to thank Dr. Stork, who did yeoman's work with the task force on some very difficult issues. And look forward to further discussion with you all. Thanks. Brian, over to you.
Thanks, Paul and Tom. I think we all struggle with how important these issues are, and I think we're all passionate about the future of our state medical society and our county medical society. So I appreciate you giving up an hour of your evening, and hope as Dr. Bozick and Dr. George says, that you'll give it some considerable thought, ask questions, talk to your colleagues, and let's change the trajectory of these curves and make this exciting again. Thank you.
All right.
Have a good
Thank
night,
you
all.
all, and good evening.